Thank you so much for joining. Our speaker for today is Dr. Rasheedat Sadiq. She holds a certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages. She works as a language teacher and academic coordinator, ICICE Al-Noor Academy, Abuja, Nigeria. She's a passionate literacy advocate who runs a mobile library called the Mobile Reading Room, which gives children in underserved areas access to books and explicit instruction on a wide range of comprehension strategies. She is a mentor to pre-service and in-service teacher and a certified instructional coach who also trains teachers on learner-centered pedagogy, which focus on utilizing emotional intelligence to derive learning outcomes. She is a storytelling expert, wow, and champion public speaker who loves to share her knowledge and experiences at webinars, workshops, and conferences. She is a budding materials writer who has authored 2 published books, namely a children's fiction titled Ramadan Escapades and a non-fiction titled A Practical Guide to Public Speaking. Join me as I welcome Dr. Rasheedat Sadiq. Thank you so much for joining us, Ma. We really appreciate you. We are glad to have you. Welcome, Ma.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. It's an honor. All right. Okay, so I would like to be able to share my slides if that is possible.
Yes, you can share your slides.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm really, really happy to be able to share. And I saw from the objective of this session is to just share with other teachers and encourage educators that they can do more. Now, educators already do a lot, but we can still do more. There's always room for more as long as you're passionate about what you're doing. Please, I'd like someone to confirm that you can see my slides.
Yes, I can see your slide now.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to be moving along. Sometimes I get hitches that the slide doesn't move and it doesn't move on your end, but I'm moving it. So if I'm talking to a slide and you can't see something related, please let me know. So it's awesome to be here, like I said, and I'm going to be talking mainly about my organization, but it's no longer mine. You know, when you have a baby and you share it with the entire community, our organization, the Mobile Reading Room, and how we are working to bridge the literacy gap in underserved communities. So I'm gonna tell my story today. And interestingly, a lot of times we think we don't have a story. I remember a few years back, I was invited to write my story in a book titled We Will Lead Africa. And I thought to myself, I'm a teacher, like what story do I have? But when I started to dig deep, I realized I actually have a lot to tell. And everybody has a lot. Even before you've gone out of your comfort zone, you do have a story that others can learn from. So this is going to be like the outline or the chapters of my story. So the backstory, Ibiyemi did say that I love telling stories, and I'll try not to be too dramatic today because we're all adults. But once upon a time, long ago, a few decades, I'm not going to say how far, when I was a young girl, I loved reading books. And my parents were so wonderful that they encouraged me in my love for books. They spent time to buy books for me, and I would devour the books, and they would buy me more. And then I would go to school, especially when I got to secondary school, I would borrow books from people. I would take it home, and instead of reading my books for study, I would read the storybooks. And then at a point, I became a boarding student, and I would borrow books to read in the middle of the night. So my friends would tell me, it's not my book, or Amina is after me, Ade is after me. I'm like, don't worry, just give me when you're sleeping. Before you wake up, I'll finish reading it. And truly, before the next morning, I would have finished reading that book. So that's a bit of a backstory about how passionate I am about books. And I must say that I see the impact of reading all those books in my life. I see the fact that I have an interesting imagination. I love to have adventures. I have a good vocabulary. I have a way with words, I've been told, and I believe so because I have won some speaking championships. And all of this, I believe, came from my love of books and my reading of books. So going into university, always loved teaching, but you know how it is with us, we want the prestigious vocations. So I decided, okay, I won't go for education. I'm going to go for something in the medical line. And so I did. And I read veterinary medicine. I became a veterinary doctor. But after I read veterinary medicine, I started working in a clinic, but I still had a dream. I attended an entrepreneurship program. And in that entrepreneurship program, for those that are familiar, it's quite popular. It's called FATE, Aspiring Entrepreneurs Program. Faith Foundation runs that. We were supposed to create a business plan. Now, because I was a vet doctor, I had a business plan that was related to the vet industry. I made a big business plan about how I was going to supply feed and how I was going to raise chickens, my poultry, and sell eggs and all of that. But I had a backup business plan, which was my passion. I wanted to open a bookshop. So I had a dream to open a bookshop, and I made a sub-business plan, related to opening a bookshop, how it'll be engaging, how it'll draw in children, how I'll make my sales, how I'll do my marketing. But along the line, I, became a teacher, and I just realized that to sell books was going to be a lot of work. And I started buying a lot of books, and I decided, okay, instead of a bookshop, maybe I'll just open a school and I'll have a library in my school. But working more and more in the field of education, I decided I didn't want to own a whole school. I wanted to build a library. So that was my dream. For, I think, since I moved to Abuja in 2015, my dream was to find out how I would build a library. So that is the backstory. And I'm going to, do a bit of visualization here. I want you to try to follow me to understand why I'm so passionate about having people being able to read and about having people have access to books. So we're going to create a friend together, and I want you to try to get in the mood with me. If you feel that it will help you with your visualization, you can close your eyes, but you don't have to close your eyes. But I want you to pretend that my story, as I'm saying it, is turning into a movie. And there's this girl, her name is Ola. And Ola came from what we would call a middle-class Yoruba family. And her parents didn't go to school, but they were comfortable. Her father was a businessman, and her mother was also a businessman. And when the concept of education started becoming popular, they didn't think much of it. They sent Ola to school, but after primary 6, they felt school was a waste of time, that she should go and learn a trade, and she would get married, and she would also open a business and become successful. Ola did know how to read a little bit, but not so fluently. And she started to learn a trade. And then after a while, she got married and she became an adult. But that was when she realized that she wasn't in very comfortable shoes. When she had to go to the hospital to have her first baby, she couldn't understand most of the things that were written on the signs. She had to ask a lot of questions. And some people, maybe deliberately or otherwise, actually misled her. Some people looked at her with irritation. Some people looked down on her because she couldn't read, and they just felt she was a local illiterate, good for nothing. She wasn't looked upon well by the nurses, and she wasn't very happy. Along the line, there were some complications, and she had to run around. Even when she had to get the medication, she found out after some time that because she couldn't read, she couldn't really understand all the things that she had to do, she gave the wrong medication to her child. There were more complications. And there and then, Ola vowed to herself that she was going to learn how to read properly and understand what she was reading. And she set to work. So put yourself in Ola's shoes. If you couldn't read, how would life be for you? Do you know anyone who cannot read? Do they struggle through the modern world? If you were in Ola's shoes, would you still strive to learn to read in your adult years? Or would you just continue on through life and hope that your own children would be literate? So I'm going to give a few seconds. Thank you for the applause, Temitope. I want you to actually put in the chat some of your thoughts on that story and tell me, were you actually able to visualize Ola, or do you know any Ola in your life? I want to get some feedback, so I'll wait a few seconds. While I'm waiting, while you're typing, I hope you are typing, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of literacy. Literacy is the ability to read and write and understand, because sometimes we miss out the comprehension part. Yes, there are a lot of Olas in our society. And literacy is not about reading and writing only in English. Yes, I can see somebody else says they can visualize Ola. Thank you so much for your engagement. People are literate in numerous languages. So literacy is not about English. It's about being able to communicate in other ways and to comprehend what is going around in your society. Fortunately for us, Nigeria, because we are multi-ethnic and we have many languages, in most institutions, there would be Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, and English written. There would be literature in those core languages, including English, for us to survive. But a number of people cannot even read in their own native languages. Some cannot read, some can read, but they can't comprehend because the reading is not fluent. Same with reading English. Thank you so much for those of you that engaged. I'm happy we can relate to Ola's story. So from there, I go back to my story. Thank you, Temitope. Yes, the love of a mother, yes, pushed Ola to better herself. But some people are not as lucky as she is. They don't realize they can get better. And some people have so many odds stacked against them that they feel it's impossible to start. So we as educators are in a place to support them. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. Now, like I said, after listening to the story of Ola, I'm hoping you're seeing how passionate about literacy I am and why I'm so passionate about literacy, because it's not only about reading and writing. It's not only about getting high grades in school. It's about life. It's about a high quality of life. So I decided, and this was during the pandemic, when there was some time on our hands, to start an Instagram handle called Reading with Dr. S. So that was where I started from. And I had this Instagram handle where I would have Instagram lives talking about the importance of reading. I would have Instagram lives teaching a little bit about the best ways to help children to read. And this went on for a while. And still at the back of my mind, that dream to open a library was there. And you know, they say that opportunity meets preparedness. So I had identified some gaps. I had identified the fact that a lot of us do not have access to books. Now, even when I was younger and the economy was not this bad, although the way Nigerian economy is as if it's always, bad. But, sometimes we just wonder that even though it was bad then, it wasn't this bad. We didn't have access to libraries. We had access to bookshops though, and my parents used to buy books for me. But now we have issues with the books being so expensive, and we still don't have so many libraries that allow learners to borrow. We also have the gap of teachers not being trained in the pedagogy of reading. Now, there's something called the science of reading that helps learners to read faster and to read in a holistic manner. Excuse me. So reading has a lot of components, and we learn to read using the whole method. And yes, it can be taught in that way, but sometimes not all learners can learn that way. But with the science of reading, we have phonemic awareness, we have phonics, we have vocabulary, we have fluency, and we have comprehension. But many of our teachers are not trained in those 5 aspects. So you see us just focusing on having the children cram, on using the Queen Primer. It has its use, but that's not the basis of reading. And a lot of us cannot become accomplished readers just with that. We also have the gap of insufficient resources. So even for those places where we have teachers that are trained in the methods, we don't have the resources. We don't have flashcards to help our children to remember the sound. We don't have video or audio to sing the song or to show them the picture or to show them the video. Then we also have issues with comprehension. That's a big, big gap that I noticed early on, and I wanted to address in my project. Another issue that we do have sometimes is the language barrier. So we are teaching in a language that the students do not understand. And sometimes that is a problem. And then final one is personal beliefs. So just like in the story of Olas, her parents didn't believe that it was so important that she went to school or that she learned to read or write, because they didn't. In some places, parents believe that the Western education is the one corrupting their children. So they're not going to allow them to learn to read or write. And there are so many other things around, maybe because she's a boy or because they need money in the home. They value the money the child can bring over going to school where you end up spending money. So there's a lot within that, and there are a lot of gaps. Now, this is a literacy map. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it does show that we do still have a long way to go regarding literacy in Nigeria. Now, this map is for those over the age of 15, but of course it starts young. I mean, if we don't get them reading early on, the gap keeps growing, and then it's more and more difficult for the reading to be learned. So I had my dream. I had identified the gaps. I knew what I wanted to do. And then the opportunity came to me. And they do say preparedness meets opportunity, or opportunity meets preparedness. I was fortunate enough to see on LinkedIn from one of the people I followed that there was going to be a challenge, an SDG challenge, where the winners of the challenge would get access to training on how to run a project, and they would also get funding. And for me, I thought, okay, excellent. This is what I really needed, because I knew what I wanted to do. But, you know, sometimes you have this doubt in your mind that you're not sure it's going to work. You don't even know how to do it. So this incubator program for me was something that I felt would push me into starting my project. Unfortunately, with the support of 1 million teachers and the SDG challenge, I learned so many things. I learned how to prepare a budget. I learned how to scale my project. I learned about pitching. I learned about monitoring and evaluating a pilot and scaling. You know, so many things were learned. I can't share all of that here, but I do want to say something. Even if you have not gotten this opportunity like I got, you can start from somewhere like I did. Something as small as the Instagram channel already puts me on the path to where I wanted to be when the opportunity came. And sometimes we can start even without the support we feel we need, and we grow as we move along. So here, I'm going to pause again. I do want a bit of engagement. I want you to write in the chats what you are passionate about. So for me, it's literacy, and I may have some people that are also literacy people here, it's fine, but I want you to think. For some people, it's adult education. For some people, it's climate education. For some people, it's entrepreneurship. For some people, it's female health. For some people, is male role models. There are so many types of projects. For some of us, it's related to what we teach as educators. For some, it's totally unrelated. So I just want you to take some time now, and you may even have 3, 4, or 5 passions, because I have more than one, but literacy is the one on the front burner for me. And type in the chats, please. Don't be shy to share. Nobody's going to steal your idea, and you can code it if you want. So I'm going to wait a few moments while we think and write some of that for us. Abdulatif has so many passions, and he's already doing a lot in the space. So I want to see yours first of all, growth-minded educator. Go ahead and put in the chats for us. What are you passionate about? Okay, math and speaking to teenagers, awesome. Okay, teacher empowerment, yes, we see that. Empowering students to dream big and achieve academic excellence, awesome. All right, I'm waiting for some more. I don't want to call out people's names, but I think I'll quickly check the participants list now if you don't put your answers. And for some of us, we're not sure, and that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Priska, being a role model. Yes, that's an interesting one also. Any more? Please keep them coming. All right, I'm going to move on, but I'm expecting some more because I see more people in the chat. Arise, I want to see yours. Okay, so excellent. This is another reading passionate person like me, Priska. It's so nice to meet you and to know that we're many on this boat. Awesome. So by, I think, 2021, after the incubation program, or during the incubation program, basically, I started the project. And we had a mission of facilitating literacy for children aged 5 to 12 in underserved communities. And we wanted to do this by giving them access to books. So I would take my books physically to those communities. We would also model reading. So we had read alouds at every session. And then we would explicitly teach comprehension skills like inferring, like drawing conclusions, like making predictions, like asking questions, like making connections. And those were the core skills. But when we got to the communities, we actually realized that we needed to add a bit more, because some of the children could not even read at all. It was our assumption that they were reading, but they maybe were not really understanding what they were reading. But we realized that a number of them couldn't read. So we added decoding into that. And then, of course, we saw that we couldn't do this job alone. We had to recruit members of the community to support us. And that was where the training component also came in. All right, thank you. Temitope says, empowering female in technology, literacy, numeracy, and in STEM education. So she's all for the female. Shade Zainab says she's passionate about teaching English. That is awesome. And you know, the beautiful thing about some of these things, as you go into your passion, you sometimes find a niche. You may even find that there's a particular aspect that you are more passionate about, and that's fine. Or you may decide to stay broad, and that's also fine. So at the bottom, we have our vision. This is a vision, of course, for the long term, but we don't want to stay small. We start small, but we don't stay small, because if you stay small, you may just die out. It may just become routine or boring. So it's our vision to be at the forefront of literacy advocacy. So we're hoping that in a few years' time, just like I'm so fortunate that Abdulatif is helping me share my work, the work would also speak for itself all over Nigeria, all over the world, and reach the nooks and crannies of the nation. So we're looking at moving away from our current Abuja, Niger, and Nasarawa focus to even expanding. Now, how are we going to do that? We may not know now, but it's in our vision. And we want to focus on practical and hands-on programs that improve literacy and general academic achievement, because we find that every year we have issues with passes in WAEC and issues with JAM. And the fact is that a lot of these learners cannot even comprehend the questions. Some cannot read the questions. Some can read, they can't comprehend. Some can comprehend, but they're not literate enough to put their own thoughts down coherently on the paper for the examiners to understand. So they know the answers, but when they write it down, it's not making sense. So there is a lot. And, you know, why should a learner go through school, even understand the material, but when it comes time to put it down, there's a gap. So these are some of the things that we hope that our program can address. Now, this was the first logo of the reading room when we started. It was the reading room. We didn't have mobile in it. And later on, we found, I think, that there's another company bearing the reading room, and we also had always wanted it to be mobile. So we decided to add the mobile reading room, and we upgraded to a more professional logo, which we saw at the very beginning. Of course, I'm not doing it alone. I have a team. Teamwork makes the dream work. Now, our creative director, Fauza Alimi, was with me from the start. Like when I wanted to apply for the incubator, I reached out to her. I said, I want to do this. What do you think? Can you be a part of my team? Because I know that it's not easy to carry such a load alone. And she was so gracious to accept. She's very busy and does a lot of stuff, but she also used to be a teacher, and she saw what I saw and she keyed into this dream. And the other person, Fatima Ibrahim, she's a lawyer, but interestingly, we work together. She also used to be a teacher, and she also saw what I saw. And we started as a group together, but we are not yet doing it alone. We have other volunteers that join us. A lot of teachers volunteer. Students also volunteer. Some people that just see the work on social media just reach out to me and say, oh, this looks beautiful. When are you going next? Can I join you? Then, of course, we have some people that don't have the time to join us or don't even have the interest, but they want to support our work. So they donate books, they donate snacks for the children, they donate materials, because our project has 3 core components, and I'm going to be getting to that. And the components of the program right here are just 3. We have the fact that we're going to be reading to the children, and we're also going to be allowing them to borrow books. We're going to be helping them improve their phonics and fluency, and we're going to be teaching them comprehension skills. We're going to be reading aloud to them to support the comprehension and the fluency. And we're going to listen to them also read back. And this is our new logo. Another component of our program was the craft component. We also realized that one of the reasons that people, or children especially, find reading boring is that it doesn't really make sense to them. They don't understand why they need to read. They cannot bring out the abstract concepts in the book and relate it to real life. So we decided that for every session, when we finish reading a book, we're going to have what we call a creative response task. And what we do is that we make up a craft activity that is related to the book that the children can do. And this helps for children that are more artistically inclined. It helps for those that like to use their hands more. They're able to benefit from the book. They're able to bring the book to life. They're able to remember more, because as we know, what you do, you remember more than just what you hear or what you see. So we had that component of crafts. So for every session, we would have the read aloud, we would have the children reading themselves, we would also have the craft component, and sometimes would have some additional components like quizzes, like role play, small discussions, and things like that. In some places, we also had to include translation because the language barrier was there. So this is a lot. I'm not going to go through all of it, but these are some of the things that came out during the training that I needed to look into and to think about for my project to succeed. Because sometimes it's not just about having a good idea. You have to think about it holistically. What do you need? How are you going to get it? Who are the people that are going to support you? Okay, so we were ready to go. We had our funding, but of course, when the reality came, it wasn't as easy as it sounded. The dream became a reality, and we faced a number of challenges. The first challenge was actually getting access to communities. I felt I had a wonderful project. I had my books in the boot of my car. Like, which community would not want their children to read? But interestingly enough, I got to some communities where they were grilling me and asking some serious questions. And in hindsight now, I don't blame them, but at the time I was perplexed. Like, I want to help you. Why are you making this so difficult? They were asking questions like, who is sponsoring you? Why are you doing this? Are you sure you're not expecting any payment? And like I said, at the time I didn't understand, but now I understand better, because as a community leader, it is part of your job to protect your community. You don't know what this person is coming to do. And a lot of times in the past, it has been found that, oh, maybe some of the medication that were given free of charge were faulty, or, you know, some things are done for political gain. Some people were asking me, are you PDP or APC? I'm like, I'm not in any political party. I don't, you know, I don't have anybody. I'm not even funded by anybody. It's just something I want to do. So for some communities, it was really difficult. For almost all, it was difficult. Even when I tried to approach schools, I did get a bit of a stumbling block. Some people said I had to go to Subeb, I have to go to UBEC, I have to go to, you know, and I was like, okay, who do I go to in UBEC? I didn't know my way around. I didn't know what to do. But as I kept pressing and asking, I was finally able to get one link to a community. And that community, I think they had done some work with the religious community I work with. So I was introduced like, okay, this is a sister. And yes, she was one of those that supported the Ramadan program we did last time. So that was how I was able to get the first community. And we started work, and it was really wonderful. They gave us just a space to use outside, well, kind of like a veranda, but it was enough for us. The children would sit, I brought rugs for them to sit on. They would read the books, we'd read together, would do the craft. Another issue that we did face, though, after some time was that the books I had, most of them I bought secondhand, and almost all of them were foreign books. So for most of the children in the private schools, if I read a foreign book to them, they can relate, they understand, they know what apple is, they know what a cake is, they know what a cupcake is, they know, you know, all those things they see on TV, they can relate to it in the book. They know snow. But I'm going to communities where some of the children don't even go to school. Some go to school, but they're not that exposed. So the books were not really having the impact I was hoping. So I started searching for books that were written by Nigerian authors, by African authors. They were available, however, they were really, really expensive. Where I was buying one of those foreign books for like 1,000 or 500 at that time, like 5 years ago or 4 years, I would get a Nigerian book for 2,500, 3,000. And so we could read those books with them, but I was always cautious about giving them the books to take away, because I didn't want to lose, you know, 3,000 or 2,500 at a go. At a point also, we had issue with staffing, because like I said, I got a lot of volunteers that were willing to join us, but the issue was retaining them for a long time. We were going on Saturdays, and these are people that had their own day jobs, they had their own lives. So many a times after a period of a few weeks, you'd hear, oh, I have something to do. I have a course I'm running. I have a wedding I'm doing. So it was a bit of an issue having consistent volunteers. And of course, we had trained these volunteers, and then they would go and a new set of volunteers would come. So it wasn't always easy. There was also the issue with managing expectations of the communities. So some of the communities, you know, were like, are we only reading? Aren't we going to teach them math and English? Aren't we going to add more? Aren't they going to write? So in one of the communities, we actually bought them exercise books, and we're like, okay, let them write. But at the end, we had to go back and see, okay, what exactly is our mission? Let's be careful not to have what they call scope creep, where you just want to meet up with everything. Another community said, is it only English reading? That are we going to have somebody teach them Arabic too? And at that point, we had to say, no, I'm sorry, this focus is on we're going to teach reading, but not just English reading. We're also going to support with reading Hausa, because we decided that, okay, we know that literacy is not only about reading in English, and these children already speak Hausa. Let's look at reading Hausa, reading English. So those were our focus. We didn't want to add an Arabic component, even though some of them wanted that. Some of the communities also expected like more favors than we were able to offer, and some were even coming with health issues and other issues. And where we could, we referred them to others, and where we couldn't, we just talked about the fact that we're sorry, that's not what we can do at the moment. We also had some challenges, community challenges now, not really from the community. So 2 communities that we were going to were actually demolished. So one of the communities, we don't go there anymore because the entire place we were using was demolished. They were illegal settlements, sort of. And we just had to stop. We don't even know what happened to the children. And that was really sad. That was the first community we ever went to. And we had been with them for over a year. We'd seen the children grow, learn to read, learn to speak in English. When I first got there, they were speaking to me in Hausa and I was learning Hausa. I was happy. But after a year, they were all speaking to me in English. And I was like, oh, you guys aren't going to teach me Hausa anymore. So we did have some of those challenges, that some of the settlements were temporary and the inhabitants had a tough life. They had to move. One of the other settlements was also demolished, but they didn't move. They just relocated and were in flimsy, like tarpaulin houses. So we still do go there, but you can imagine someone that doesn't have a settled home, how much energy they would give into a concept like literacy. It's not going to be so much. And of course, we did have issue of some of the learners borrowing books and not returning them, damaging the books. In some of the communities, we stopped giving them the books. We had to weigh which communities were able to better take care of the books. So we just allow them to read at the session, but we don't allow them to take it home anymore. And then, of course, there was that challenge of the more communities we started working with, the more thinly spread we were. And we had to decide, okay, initially we were going every week to the first community. We had to stop, okay, and decide, do we want to do it once a month or every fortnight? How are we going to split our team so that nobody gets burnt out and we also have time for ourselves during the weekend? Which led to the next challenge of time and self-management, which wasn't easy. Funding is always an issue, but it wasn't too big of an issue because we did have the most of the resources, the books. We had the books. Some of them were getting torn, but we had the books. The funding issues were regarding things like transporting ourselves, paying for transportation for the volunteers, buying the snacks for the learners, for the children, and things like that. Another interesting challenge was the amount of paperwork that is involved if you want to do the project right. We talked about budgeting, doing evaluations, writing reports, keeping track of things. And that's something I must confess I still struggle with, especially because, like I said, we all have our day jobs. This is something that is done kind of by the side. And at a point when you have a project like this, you may have to decide, should I face this project squarely so that it can grow? Or should I still keep doing it side by side with my teaching or any other job that I do? So how can we sustain this? It's not easy, but one good thing is community involvement. Now, I have this picture here because in this community, I was so impressed. All the members of the community pitched in to help. Like in this community, if I leave them a box of books, I'm almost sure that they can replicate what I've done very well because they were so enthusiastic and there were so many of them that were there to support us, men and women. In most of the other communities, we actually never see the men. This community, the men here are educated. So I guess that's why. This is, but most of the other communities, the men are just, the men and women may not even be educated, or they may just be educated to a little extent. Another thing we want to try to do is to approach schools. This one was a school we approached and we saw the impact, and we have been able to make leadway into one government school. So hopefully we can use that success to reach out to other LEA schools. We also want to try to introduce technology and be more innovative. So why not try something via Zoom in some instances? In some communities, they do have phones that we can use. They do have, you know, some technology that we can look into. We're also looking at having other services that can pay for the free things that we do. So we're looking at maybe selling books. We're looking at even having paid services for the more well-off schools and communities. We had done something like that in the past where we had a holiday program that was paid and the profit from that was plowed into the the project. And then we're also looking at, okay, we want to go all over Nigeria. Do we create a sort of franchise model where we give other people the opportunity to run with, the project? We give them the model to follow, and we give them the support that they need, and they run it over wherever they are in the country. So these are just some thoughts on how we can keep the mobile reading room going strong for years to come. What's been in the impact? We've seen, like, I've seen impact within 3 weeks, for some of them within the day. Like, you see the difference. Just the fact that they're happy to hold a book, they got to hold a book, is something that is worth talking about. So yes, there's the increased access to books. There's the opportunity for them to borrow the books. A lot of them are improving in reading and fluency. Comprehension is definitely going up, spoken and reading comprehension. So listening comprehension rather, and reading comprehension. Then their creativity and critical thinking. For every time we introduce a craft, I'm always amazed at how creative the children are, and shows that all they need is opportunity, and they can do more. They always do more than we introduce to them. We've also been able to train a number of volunteers. Some are still with us. Some, I'm sure, are using the skill in other places. And we haven't really been able to track the grade improvement in the learners, which is one of the ways we wanted to track our impact. And for us, we created a curriculum, a reading curriculum for reading in English and reading in Hausa. And to a large extent, we are not fully able to comply with that curriculum, but we are about 60% able. Reasons are sometimes the irregular attendance by the children, sometimes the fact that they're not really getting it because they don't have that opportunity to practice, except once in 2 weeks or once in a month that we go to the community. So we have, for now, not really focused on the curriculum of reading, but we're focusing more on getting them to love books, getting them to appreciate the beauty of books, and improving their comprehension skills. So this is one of the communities. This is Gishiri, the very first one we went to. And like I said, this has been demolished. But if you see this picture here, this is one of the charts we use to help them with their comprehension skills, to sequence what they read and to be able to retell. So we have, like, use this first, then next, finally. And like I said, we give them the opportunity to read. Then we give them the task. So this bottom one, they're painting a pot. We had read Ladi Kwali's Pots. That was the name of the book. Then the first one, we had also read about a train, and we gave them the opportunity to color trains. And you see them improving with time. Like, when we first started, some of them, they didn't even know how to color within the lines. And then within a few weeks, they are making such beautiful paintings and putting their own spin to the coloring. This is another one, which is called Ruga. This is another temporary settlement, but they're still there. Initially, they had a building where we could have the events, but after the demolition, now we do the reading outside, but they're still very enthusiastic. Fortunately, many of the children in Ruga do not go to school at all. Some of them may have attended in the past, but Ruga is actually a temporary settlement. Some people that were displaced, some people are not displaced, but they are nomadic by nature. It's a Fulani settlement, so they don't stay in one place for very long, so they can't actually, stay enroll in a school and learn for long. But they always show enthusiasm, and some of them actually do remember and learn. So these are some of the places that we also focus on trying to teach reading in Hausa, so that at least they're literate. Even if they can't speak any English, they can get by. So this is another community. It's called Dutse. This is the community where they give us access to the school. So we go on weekends, and this one where they're wearing a uniform was actually on Children's Day. We organized the competition, and the children came in their uniforms, and they did so well. They read so well. This is a really beautiful community, and one where the whole community has come in to support us. So the head teacher, the village chief, the community chairman. And because of that, we've been able to do so much with this community. And I'm going to talk a little bit about them when I look into what the future holds for us as the mobile reading room. This is a community in Mpape. This was another community where they were very supportive. This was the one where the men were there helping us out. And reading with the children. So the place of the community involvement is really, really key. And there's so many million and one pictures I could share. I didn't even know which ones to share, but just for us to have an idea of the kind of work we do. And this one is the last community is in Niger State. It's called Arome. So they also have a school, and it's a privately owned school. The lady also owns an orphanage, but the students come from the entire community, not just from the orphanage. And they were also very, very involved, very welcoming. The children here could actually read very well. So we had just to focus on comprehension with them, and they were able to read the books, and we're really, really impressed with them. So the future of the mobile reading room is bright. We were able to donate a library to the school in Dutse. So what happened was that they gave us a room, and we renovated the room, an old classroom that was a bit dilapidated. So we renovated it, we put in a bookshelf, and we're stuck with books for them. And that is growth. That is something that we may want to do more of as the mobile reading room grows. And for this project, we got so much support. We even got some people from outside the country donating money for the renovation and for the furniture and everything that would go into the room. And the community themselves were really, really vested. They got their people to work on it. And I was so impressed. And that's what I see as sustainability. And I'm hoping we can replicate in other places. We do hope to get a real bus so that we can have like a real mobile library with our books well arranged in the bus and not just in the boot of my car. We're looking at designing digital and physical products that we can sell. We do have, more services that we're thinking of bringing on board. And here I want some input before I go. You've listened to me. What are some suggestions that you think we can do to make our future brighter? I'd like you to also be of benefit to me. I'm hoping that what I've said today has given you some ideas to grow your own passion and to envision a bright future as an educator and to become a visionary educator. But I would like you to, just think deep and see if there are any suggestions that you can make to us as the mobile reading room that we can add as services. At the moment, we have a YouTube channel that we want to grow where we read. So it's like having access to audiobooks that you can read at the same time, like ebooks. Sorry for the spelling of subscribe. I don't know how that came out as subscribe, but I hope you understand. You can check our YouTube channel and do subscribe. We hope to get more people to be able to have access to books through that, especially if the parents don't have time to read to them. They can just play such beneficial educational material to them. We also have a website, so you can, go through our website and have an idea of some of the things we do. The website is not as versatile as our social media. So we're on Instagram, we're doing well there. We're also on LinkedIn. Thank you, Priska, for appreciating and for being so patient to listen till the end. All right. So I'm still waiting to see if I'm going to get any suggestions, but if there are no suggestions, I think this is also a good time for anyone that has questions to ask their questions. Thank you. Okay, I can see a hand. Adedo Khadija. IBM, is it okay? Can she ask her question?
Yes, please, if you have any questions, go ahead. So,
Thank you. Someone has helped me put the link in the chats. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Thank you, VME. Yeah, Khadija, please go ahead. Thank you, Tini.
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon. Or are we in the evening? I'm so sorry. Sister Rasheedat, I would like to appreciate you. I'll appreciate the convener and the co-host, Sister IBME. Well, I've listened, and I would like to just appreciate you, Sister Rasheedat, for what you are doing. I think the first time I met you was when we did our 1 million teachers black belt graduation, I think 2 years ago. So since then, I think I followed you a bit, not consistently though. So I think I'm going to adopt or I'll check your website, the mobile reading room, because I have a dyslexic learner that I'm working on, though I am not a special educator myself. So, but I'm trying to go into that. So my question would now be, I think you touched a bit about it, on balancing your work and the projects that you have passion for. As it is now, I came to the United States for 6 weeks. I got the Fulbright scholarship, and I'm here. So I have to work on my action research projects. The projects I want to work on, a lot to work on neurodiversity. Though I'm a math teacher, but I think that there might be a link between dyslexia and mathematics learning. So, but then as it is, as I've looked into it, I see the projects looking a bit complicated for me, especially when I have my job to do as well and other commitments. So I'll just like you to talk more about balancing work, personal projects, family, and some other things that are just important to you personally as a person, away from work, from family, and every other thing. Before I venture into it, I need to know what I'm getting into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked, and I think it's important to actually have a good idea of what you are going to venture into before you do venture into it. It's important to try to have a balance, but I must be sincere that sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes you have to sacrifice some things for other things. So we do have the opportunity cost. And sometimes you have to be intentional about it though. So, for example, when I started the project, every week I was at the site. I knew I had to be there, and I sacrificed my weekends. I didn't have any Saturdays for about 2.5 months. Even when volunteers were going with me, I was always there. But at a point, I had gotten the project to a space where people understood what I wanted to get done, and they were able to do it. And even if they couldn't do it exactly the same way I would do it, I was comfortable enough to let them do it their own way. They could do it to an acceptable degree. So for those first 2 months, I did give all of myself. I did sacrifice all my Saturdays. I had to appeal to my family that I'm sorry, that I'm not giving you as much time as I should. Okay, Sundays are going to be for you guys. I'm not going anywhere on Sundays, so I try to do that balancing act, but there are some things that may need to suffer, in quotes, at the beginning of your project. Another thing I try to do is to delegate. It's important that you don't try to do everything alone. Don't try to be a superwoman. Some things you need to let go of, you don't do it at all. Some things you reduce, and some things you allow other people to do for you, even if they're not going to be doing it exactly the same way you would have done it. And try to get supportive people around you, friends that can support you. And that's why also when I wanted to start immediately, even before the project set off, I looked for a partner that could support me. Now, I did have a partner right from the beginning, but I knew she wasn't going to be a 50-50 partnership, because she had other things going. It was mainly me, but it could be a 75%, 25% partnership. I wasn't alone. That was the key for me. Sometimes it was even just about somebody to talk about the problems with, to share the challenges with, to brainstorm with. And at other times, she was there present with me physically. At other times, she was there when I couldn't be there. So all of that you need to consider. And with regards to your research, I think it's good. If it's an action research, it doesn't take that much from us. It just takes planning and consistency. Now, there are some other types of research that are more in-depth and that would take a lot, but for action research, it doesn't really take so much. And I think you are right. There is dyscalculia as a condition also, and there may be that relatedness between dyslexia and dyscalculia and other, learning challenges that students face. And I think it's something good that, because for me, I know that even if in Nigeria, we find a lot of children that are good with math, they're good with calculation, but they can't go far because most of these math problems are word problems. Like the real world is a word problem. So even a normal, critical thinking question, because it's phrased as a sentence, people don't know what to do. They can't apply, I want to buy a rug for my room. How big does it have to be? They can do the math. They know how to solve area and volume, but they don't know that to calculate the size of your rug, you need to do like length times breadth. They're not able to relate it. So they are related. And I think it's a good one for you to look into. Just plan your time, but do prepare yourself mentally that there is going to be some stress and there you will need to sacrifice some things.
I understand. Well, I wasn't actually referring to my action research. I know action research does not need a lot from me, but I don't want to keep it just within the scope of my classroom. I want to expand. I don't want it to be like a typical Nigerian project that I just have to write to get the certificate and then keep it in the shelf. I want something that I can apply to other schools where children, that is the true essence of the research. If it's well, so I want to expand. I want a lot of children to benefit from it. That's the one I was referring to, not really the one that I have to do for my Fulbrights. Yeah.
So the expansion, I think it's great. Just plan. If you plan well ahead, it's easier, but there will be some hiccups. And like I said, just at the beginning, you may need to give 110% of yourself, but once you get it established, you can actually relax. In some places, you can even extract yourself and just be overseeing, depending on how the project goes.
Okay, so I'll just hold on there for now, and maybe I'll chat you up. I have your LinkedIn on, yeah. So thank you, ma'am.
No problem. You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Ma. Okay, someone is asking a question in the chat box. Do you train teachers for coding sensitive student skills?
Yeah, yes, I'll say yes, because I have done in the past. Recently, I just like we're talking about, there's been so much on me that I stopped, but those are some of the services that we want to also go back to as the mobile reading room for sustainability and to help the wider public, to give people, the skills on how to actually teach reading. So yeah, hopefully soon you'll be hearing more from me regarding that. We hope to do more on that.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Please, if you have questions, can you ask your question? Okay, we are waiting.
Okay, I think I can go.
Yes, please.
Good evening, Mrs. Rasheedat. Thank you so much for sharing all you had to share in the last, I think, an hour now. So beautiful. It was so reconciling. All right. Within the week, I was privileged to be part of a team carrying out the research on climate change, on education. So through the process, we had to select two schools here in Nasarawa State, Kefi, all right. In one of those schools, I'm trying to share this in regards to what you talked about with literacy, reading in other language, and how that really contributes to the concept of literacy. So in one of the research we're having, we're trying to get data, trying to interview the participants, and we had this very girl among the 8 randomly selected students. She couldn't really express herself in English, but my God, she was so fluent in Hausa. So fluent. So right in that moment, I sat down trying to wonder. So now we can, we have this mindset in Nigeria to say, oh, if you can't speak in English, if you can't write in English, oh, you're not literate. You probably fall in the other category. But right in that moment, I was really, really blown away. Now hearing you speak about this, I was like, wow, this is just a confirmation to what I was just thinking on. And right. And at the end of the research, she had the most contribution, the most valid contribution to the team. So thank you so much, Ma, for sharing. Now, my question, if it could be a question, maybe it should be. All right. So in regards to comprehension, I was going to really understand if you would want to share or probably privately share. Do you have some step-by-step process, I mean, in which you help, the students whom you reach out to really comprehend? Because I heard about comprehension, but I want to really understand. Do you really have a step-by-step process one can adopt, right? Probably trying to train a student or, regarding whatever area. One worked for me perfectly, but I think I'm willing to really learn from you regards to what has been working from you. Thank you, ma.
Hey, you're welcome. So with regards to comprehension, there are established like research or materials basically on what you can do to support comprehension. And a lot of the materials that I use, I got from twinkle.co.uk. They used to have a Nigerian section of the website. I'm not sure if it's still working. So, but basically it doesn't have to be from Twinkle. I just got flashcards and posters from their site. But the concept of the fact that children should be able to reflect on what they read. They should be able to ask themselves questions about whatever they read. So when I'm teaching comprehension explicitly, I look at some of the skills. So I talked about questioning. I could take a whole class where we're talking about questioning, and for every either line or paragraph we read, we pause and we ask ourselves questions about the paragraph or about the line or about the passage. Who did this? Why did they do this? What do you think would come next? And that's another skill. After questioning, we have prediction. Now, some predictions are also made through questions sometimes. What do you think will happen next? Or, how do you think so will feel when this happened? Or how did you think she felt? All of those are questions. And then we have making connections. I could have another session on making connections where they try to connect what they're reading now to something they have read in the past or something that has happened in their life. So I can ask something like, has any of you ever lost a tooth? If the story talks about a child that lost a tooth, how did you feel when you lost a tooth? Why did you lose your tooth? Did your tooth come back? Then we even go deeper into talking about milk teeth and permanent teeth, even though we're talking about a story and we're still within comprehension. And we go into how many teeth do adults have, how many teeth the children have. We go into a lot of causes of losing teeth. Have you ever seen someone that lost their tooth? A lot of things just to help them get a better sense of the passage. So with making connections too, you have like connection to self, connection to text, and connection to the world. Those are ways we can make connections. Then we talk about inferring. That's a very interesting one that is, I think, the most difficult for most people to learn and to understand, that they need to sometimes read between the lines and infer what is not directly said, but is implied by the words in the passage. And we talked about using previous knowledge and things that are in the book. And we do that, also drawing conclusions. Summarizing is also another key concept of comprehension. So that's where we use the sequencing words like first, next, and there are many different methods for summarizing. And then there's also like, as they grow older, there's the SQR3 method. There are so many comprehension methods that we sometimes introduce to the learners. But for my project, I don't go as far as talking about SQR3. That's more for like advanced readers. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. It does help. Thank you so much. I'm grateful. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ron. Do you have any questions? We have more questions. Is there anyone that is asking questions again? All right, in the absence of more questions, so we are saying thank you so much, Mom. We are so glad. In fact, I personally have learned a lot from what you said today, and I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for answering us, not minding that, oh, who are these people? So thank you so much.
Anywhere there are teachers, I'm there. If they say it's teachers, I'll be there. And because I always learn from other teachers, and it's been an honor being here. Thank you. And I hope and look forward to seeing other projects as we interact online.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So we hope to call you again, and I'm sure you're going to answer us. Thank you so much, really appreciate it. So do enjoy the rest of your day, ma. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, so participants, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Please, just like Dr. Rasheedat has said, let's make use of what she has said. I'm sure we've learned one or two things from our story, and it's so much nice to hear from her. Sir, do you have a question, sir? Okay. So we are so glad to hear from her. So please, let's make use of what she has said. And also, join the YouTube link is there. Please join it. Also, the WhatsApp group, the link has been dropped there. Please kindly join. We have so much. In fact, a lot of programs for educators, and I'm sure you don't want to miss it. So thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you, and we hope to do this again. Yeah, we're having another session very soon. So just stay tuned. Thank you so much. All right, mom. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Mr. Abdulati. Hello.
Okay. Thank you. I can hear you. All right. So I just want to appreciate Dr. Rasheedat for. Okay, good. I just want to appreciate Dr. Rasheedat for that session. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Thank you so much for really taking us through your journey of starting the mobile reading room and how it's going. And I just want to add this to for every partner that is here. The idea of actually having a visionary educator service is to get, as you said, visionary educator service, educators that have visions, educators that are doing something beyond their classroom. And we try as much as possible to bring it from different areas, diverse areas. So you might be wondering, why will you normally when you hear something like that, you should be like, let's talk about something big and all those things. But the idea of bringing inviting Dr. Rashid personally, and we could have asked her to talk about it. She did not really mention a lot, but then she's someone that does a lot actually. If we are to come invite her to come and talk about our work with 1 million teachers, that one alone is 2 hour session on its own. We won't finish. Or if you ask her to come and talk about our experience mentoring other teachers, training other teachers, that's a whole lot of things on one side. But the reason why we specifically invite her to come and talk about the mobile reading room is also to inspire other educators, as she did during at the beginning of the session, to ask us what we are all passionate about. So the idea is that there's always something you can do wherever you are. For her, it started as a passion for reading from a young age. Even though she's not study education, she's a vet doctor, but then she's still able to live out her passion. My dearest educator that are hearing me and this watching the replay. So what is that passion that you have? What is that thing that you struggle with? What is that thing that you have challenges with going up? Can you also come up with a solution to that for people who are also for children who are also going through that? Does not have to be children, it can also be fellow teachers, can be anybody. But the idea of this is for us to also know that wherever we are, whatever we have, there's something we can do. We can also make impact in our small way. We can, as I said, we can always start small, but then the goal is not to remain small. So I want this to be an inspiration for you. The ideas that some of us have a lot of ideas in our minds, as Mrs. Adidoko shared earlier with when she asked her question. So the most important thing is that your idea is not too small and is not too big for you. Okay, so please, you can start something with it. You can see from wow, yeah, I know you are now. That's amazing. Thank you so much for being a blessing to us. So please, and she has shared a lot of pictures with us. See the number of students, children who as I said, in the community of Ruga, where people are generally nomadic or people who are displaced in their own community, they don't have access to school, and then they have to go to environment like that and actually bless the children, give them the blessing of being able to read, whether in English or in Hausa. I also want you to think about what impact will you make where you are right now, that community that you are right now. What impact can you start making with whatever resources you have, with whatever you know? So please don't let us take it for granted. I just want to appreciate you once again, Dr. Rasheedat. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. For everybody that is here, we hope that you take one or two things away from here. Yes, so thank you so much, Mrs. Ibiemi. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rahim. Rather, thank you so much for being, for giving us such a wonderful experience. I mean, and for everybody, Mr. Kinka, she's always at the back end. Thank you so much. Those are my team at the Go Mind Educators Academy. Thank you so much for making this thing happen, even at such short notice. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I just want to appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are glad to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We are grateful. Thank you.